In order, please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for waiting for us. I'm sorry we had a little camera difficulty. So I will start with the roll call. Patrice Scott is present. Butch Cushing? Present. Tom McLaughlin? Present. David Kent? Present. And Stephanie Halter? Here. I'm happy we have a full complement of the board now, and I understand we have an announcement. Mr. Murphy?
Yes, we have an alternate now, Jack Scarborough, who also sits on the planning board. Excellent. Will be joining us as an alternate. All
right. Well, thank you very much, Jack. We really appreciate your help stepping up. Okay. Excellent. All right. I will look at the minutes that we had from April 3rd. I've read through the minutes. I haven't seen any major omissions or corrections. Does anybody see anything I missed? I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
So moved.
Okay, Butch. Second it? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. All right. We have our first case, application from Christy and John Nestra for Main Street Station. They are seeking a special exception from Article 3, Section 304, area dimension, regarding a patio deck. So would you like to come forward and present your application? Tell the board members what you're seeking?
Stand or?
Yeah, you could use the podium, whatever is comfortable for you.
We are just looking for to help give the customers a better dining experience. We've definitely lost some business with the amount of outdoor seating that's available on Plymouth Main Street now. Mm-hmm. We'd like to get some of that back, so we're proposing a deck off the back of the diner. It's roughly 15 by 28. That's about it.
Okay, 15 by 28, and this would come off, would it be elevated?
Yes.
Okay.
It goes all the way up to your property line.
Yes.
Okay, 15 feet by 10.
15 feet by 20.
28.
Oh, by 28, I'm sorry. 10 feet to the rear here. 28. All right, does anybody have any questions?
So would this be like on, pylons, or what would you do for your footings for the deck?
Yeah, we'd have poured footings, 6 by 6 posts.
Okay. And hang it right up on posts, not frame and all that.
Yes.
And lights, you're gonna have lights and everything? Or?
I don't think we will. I mean, we're only open breakfast and lunch.
Oh, okay.
So we have no plans for lights.
So okay. None of those neat heaters, with the...
Yeah.
They're great at night, during the day, I mean.
Yeah.
Right, but not at this time. That's not...
Not at this time.
All right. So no lights.
Madam Chair, would this be a good time to ask these questions that were submitted?
Yes, Dave. Maybe you could, how do I do that? We received, here, wait a second. We received some questions from one of your, the abutters from Plymouth Ski and Sports. Has he received that, Brian?
I don't know. Daniel just dropped it off. Did you guys came to an agreement about certain aspects of the deck?
Yeah, I spoke with Daniel just about this afternoon. I have a copy.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
What's your plan for that?
My only concern is number 4.
Right, well, okay, why don't we, I will read number 4. We have a list of concerns submitted by the abutter who owns Plymouth Ski and Sports. Number 4 states, although not critical to the board's decision-making, I would appreciate an acknowledgement that the special exception granted for this applicant would not jeopardize my plans to erect a structure using the same 0 lot line special exception. And I would say that's not something that we could weigh in on, as it's not, there's nothing else before the board. We look at and adjudicate
Okay.
matters that come individually before us, and we can't give any opinion or have any consideration of something else. We can just consider your case as it is presented before us at this time. And the other issues I see, it looks like it's really a matter between two private property owners to work out.
Yeah, the first one, I had my contract. I haven't decided on a contract yet. I don't have plans yet. I didn't want to go through that expense until I was actually granted permission. So as far as, I don't know if you want me to address these 5 questions, or if
Sure,
you
I
have
mean, we just
questions.
appreciate to know that you're working with your neighbor in
Absolutely.
resolving any concerns.
Yep.
So,
Yep, Daniel and I spoke about this.
okay. Does that satisfy board members, or would you like to hear, Dave?
Would, about number 4, would what you're doing impede him from using the back line of his property?
No.
Okay.
But if he's planning on erecting a 3-story building, then I won't obviously need a deck there, because that'll completely defeat the purpose of putting it on.
Well, again, this is not a matter.
Exactly, yeah.
Before the board, we're here to consider what has been, an application that's already been filed, so.
I do
Mr.
have
Murphy?
a little bit more information if you would like to hear it
Okay.
concerning Daniel's concerns.
Okay,
He said that basically it's a vehicle garage, so it'd be a single story. Mostly the concern was this zero clearance, though it's not really the same special exception. This is his back line, but it's not Daniel's. So it would have to be considered a sideline, because it doesn't, I mean, though it faces the street, it's set back far enough that there is no, he's compliant with the setbacks for this, from his property. So, you know, it's kind of one of these neither fish nor fowl. It doesn't really fit in. It faces the front street, but it's not a front setback, nor is it in the front setback zone. It would have to be assumed to be a side or a rear line.
okay, what are you talking about right now? What, Daniel?
Okay.
Are you talking about Daniel's proposal? Because that's not before us.
Correct, but
Okay.
I would just, the thinking behind this when I was asked the question is that that is not a back line for Daniel's property. So the special exception does not apply in that particular
Okay.
case.
All right, well, all right, I'll just bring this back and say, we appreciate your efforts to work out with your neighbor, whatever the private property owners want to discuss, and this application is before the board, so we are prepared to go forward on this application tonight. Okay, does anybody have any other questions?
I got one.
Butch?
The access to that parking lot, who owns that?
The right-of-way?
Yeah.
I do.
You do. All right,
Okay.
okay. Is there a security issue at night? People coming up the deck?
Well, currently there's a fire escape there now anyway, so I wouldn't think it would be any more security.
Okay.
The back parking lot is well lit. I'll probably redo the light that's out there now. We have a light over the back exit anyway, so I'll probably make that a little bit more robust. But there's no other security other than, I mean, people, if you wanted to go in there now, you can go in there.
Thank you.
Okay. No questions, Stephanie? Okay. All right, then I would open the public hearing and ask if there's anybody here that would like to speak in favor of this application.
You can sit down, Burnett.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody who would like to speak against this application? Or anybody have any neutral comments, any at all? Okay, I would note that we have no input from the public. I'll close the public hearing. Now I'd like the board to make some findings of fact. Okay, let's see, the parcel is .08 acres.
So, and he's the owner of this right-of-way, Oklahoma.
Right. So, say applicant
He's the owner of a budding lot.
owns right of way. In the parking lot. Okay, the special exception in the table of uses does allow 0
The
feet.
use is allowed by special exception.
Use is allowed by special exception.
Size of the deck, did we put that in?
Size of deck is
15 by 28.
Which is about
15 by 28.
400 square feet.
28.
20 square feet.
Okay, and applicant has addressed, or applicant is working with a budding neighbor to address concerns.
Deck will have an exit that replaces the fireplace. A fireplace.
Fire
Fire
exit.
escape.
Deck will have exit. That replaces fire escape. Okay. Okay, so there's a backdoor egress. All right, now would you like to go through our,
Madam Chair?
yes?
Is it appropriate for me to bring things to the board's attention?
Sure.
The hours of operation,
Okay,
and not evening hours, so there would be no
Okay.
lighting or noise.
right, hours of operation are
Breakfast and lunch.
breakfast and lunch. And no lighting is proposed. No increased lighting or one enhancement for
We're
security.
not making that a condition of this.
No,
Yeah,
no,
it's
but
not-
what's
Just
represented,
the way it is now.
yeah, no increased lighting is proposed at this time. Okay? Okay, is that anything else? I think, Mr. Murphy, did you have anything else to add?
That was all, Madam Chair.
Great.
I've got a concern about that, the same one I think Tom has.
What?
By putting that in the findings, we may preclude them from, in the future, serving an evening meal or whatever.
I don't think that will. It's just a matter of findings of what's being proposed now.
Current situation.
I mean, anytime you grant a special exception, if they want to extend it, or don't, they have to come back, right?
So that would be an
Correct, but the-
expansion on this, if you wanted to have night, pizza back there or something?
Well, I
Yeah,
mean,
well, okay, why don't we just
This is
say,
what
why don't
we're
we just say the
considering.
hours of operation are limited at this time?
Or hours of
Rather than-
operation do not require lighting, if that
There you
is
go,
the
that's
issue.
pretty good.
That's
Okay.
better.
all right.
Hours of operation do not require
Do not require additional lighting.
additional lighting,
Yeah.
exterior lighting.
Right. Addition, we're not saying whether they can expand.
Can't.
No, but I think that is a point. when
Yeah.
the-
No, that's
you know,
good.
Not that we're looking at a new plan.
Not
or
require
anything.
additional lighting.
Right.
Okay, I think that's fine. Okay, anything else? That's good? All right, so let's go down our criteria. Number one, the proposed use shall be only those allowed in this ordinance by special exception. And we'll start with Stephanie.
That's true.
True? Tom?
True.
True?
True.
Okay. The specific site is an appropriate location and of adequate size for the use.
True.
I agree.
I believe it's true.
True. True.
Okay, unanimous. Number three, the use as developed will not adversely affect the character of the area in which the proposed use will be located.
True.
I think that's true.
True. True.
Okay, and four, there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians.
True.
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 True. True.
Okay, and five, the use will not place excessive or undue burden on town services and facilities.
True.
True.
Believe that's true.
True. True.
All right, and six, there would be no significant effect resulting from such use upon the public health, safety, and general welfare of the neighborhood in which the use would be located.
True.
True.
True. True.
True. Okay, I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to do with the application is written.
Okay, second.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Okay. You have a special exception. You're welcome. That's number one. All right, this. Okay. And this is next one here. All right, we have a second series of applications. Just want to get the number right. This is Main Street. What happened to my agenda? You see this? Okay, we have a series of applications from PSU 3 to erect a 68-unit building on Toby Road. So I'd welcome the applicant to come forward. I don't think I need to read all the numbers. I think, but there are 5. I understand. Did we may wish to consider the different applications in a different order?
Yeah, may I raise a point?
Yes.
Procedural matter? It would seem to me,
Thank you.
having read through all of this, that there's one commonality in all of them, which is the fact of the 68-unit building. Maybe we should start with that. Or is it your intention just to hear all the facts and then one at a time act upon them?
Right, well, the board can discuss what we'd like, how we'd like to proceed. I think considering them in a different order than is presented here might be wise. As you said, the 68 unit building and those applications first before parking and frontage. So, but I would propose that we listen to the applicant and then see if we want to consider the applications one by one, okay?
Perfect. So my name is Ro Elam. I work with Walk to Campus Properties. We are an off-campus student housing provider. And with me today is Will Davis with Horizons Engineering, Adam Wagner, our architect with Market Square Architects, and then Phil Hastings, our attorney with Cleveland Waters and Bass. The thought was that I would sort of give a general overview of our company and the project, and then allow the design team to give you more specifics about the design and the site plan, and then let Phil address the more relevant variance requests that are before you, if that works.
Okay.
So as I mentioned, we are an off-campus student housing provider. We're based in Rock Hill, South Carolina, and we've been in business for about 14 years. We're in 8 different college markets, and our business is fairly simple. We provide safe, well-maintained rental property that is really, really close to college campuses. So location is very important to us. In fact, 99% of our properties are within a quarter mile of their respective campuses. And we feel that's important because we allow our tenants, the students who are electing to live off campus, the ability to be close to their classes, the library, the restaurants and coffee shops that cater to the university community. So it allows those students to live off campus but still remain part of the university fabric. So which hopefully will help them with their overarching goal to graduate from college. So since our beginning, we have said that we have 4 customers. Our tenants are obviously our customer number 1. We want to provide a nice place for them to live while they're residents of ours. Their parents are our customers, oftentimes dropping their child, son or daughter off for the first time to live independently, and we expect to be held accountable. The town is a very important customer. We're a source of tax revenue, an economic generator, and we want to be a good neighbor. And then finally, the university is our customer. We feel that if we do our job well, we actually reflect well on the university, and that benefits us. So in 2015, we bought a portfolio here in Plymouth of about 22 houses. And since we've been here, we've been delighted with this market. It's a great university college town. The local staff that was already employed with the previous owner, we inherited those folks, and they've remained with us since then. We're delighted to say our properties have remained full, and we work hard to make sure that they continue to look nice. So the reason we're here, though, is to tell you about our latest venture. In 2016, we bought a property on Toby Road, which is on the north end of campus. And what has driven our concept are several compelling facts. It's a 3.5-acre site. Some of the specifics are in your handout. The site is completely surrounded by Plymouth State University, and you can see that on, I think, the 3rd page. Our understanding since we've been here is that absentee landlords have continued to migrate further into the residential community and causing town-gown friction. This site is completely buffered from the residential neighborhoods, and it sits also between several large Plymouth State dorms. So what we're proposing is a 5-story apartment building, 68 units with a total of 120 bedrooms. The building would cater to off-campus upperclassmen, graduate students, even young professionals. There'd be a combination of unit types ranging from studio, 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units. And this, as I mentioned earlier, would be completely privately funded, although surrounded by campus would remain in private hands. Depending on the entitlement process, the hope would be to start construction either in the fall or next spring and have the project completed by 2020. We, as I mentioned, we've been here since 2015. We've been humbled to be in this market. It is a great community. We want to build something that would be an asset for the community. And our hope is to build on what we already have and make, add to the university and its students. So that's kind of a general overview. I want to allow Will to come up and talk more specifically about the design. Unless there's any general questions for me, I'll sit down.
Got a general one.
Okay.
How many students would live there?
120 bedrooms.
120 bedrooms or?
Tenants.
Yeah, tenants,
Yeah.
Okay.
So 68 units and a combination of unit types.
Right.
But a total of 120 bedrooms.
Bedrooms sometimes can have more than one student bunked up in. Are you maxing residents at 120?
Yeah, we don't double up. So we intend to have 120 tenants living with us. I suppose that a married couple could live in a 1-bedroom. We don't have that, but I guess that could happen. But 120 beds is what we're intending.
Okay, anybody got any questions? Okay, I think that's fine.
Okay.
Love to hear from your design people.
Hi, so as Rose said, my name is Will Davis. I'm with Horizons Engineering. We're doing the site civil design. So I can kind of go over some of the components of the existing lot and what we're proposing from a site perspective. So the existing property is approximately 3.4 acres. Toby Road is right here, makes the bend. There's an existing driveway, and there was a former building there that's since been demolished. But the property boundary was like that. There's a wetland that flows through on this part of the property. Another one down in this part. The site's kind of characterized by a high point here, and kind of slopes down as you move towards the wetlands on all sides. It's currently fully wooded, and in terms of other existing components, there's sewer at the road here, and existing municipal water is down the way a little bit.
What is, sir?
Municipal water is
Okay.
down the way. It doesn't, the water main doesn't come all the way to the end there. Another thing I'd like to point out on this plan is there is an existing easement, which is outlined by this line right here. It was granted to Plymouth State a long time ago in order to facilitate some utility construction, primarily the sewer main, and also to allow access across Toby Road. So that is that remains in place. As Roe pointed out, all of the abutters are Plymouth State. Langdon Woods is right, I believe, right in here. It's a large, tall building that's right next to our site. There's another one right down this way. I think I can turn to the proposed sheet. So this is the concept we're working with right now. Folks would come in off of, I can kind of go over just parking and general circulation. Folks would come in off the main road here. We have kind of an upper parking area for ADA parking. There's 6 spaces up here with ADA access in the front of the building on the short side, and there's also a sidewalk that runs along the back side of the building with a few stairs down to a mid-level entrance that'll enter into a stairway, so you could go down or up. The site is configured so that it moves down as you move across the parking lot. So this is kind of first level entry here, and then this is like a lower level entry. There's parking under the building, so the first level of the building is underground parking. So you come in, go down a little slope, and then you can come down this way and go into the parking garage there. Circulation is 2-way in both directions.
So the first level's underground parking?
Correct. So you would enter in here into an underground parking garage where there's, I believe, approximately 36 parking spaces under the building, along with a few other components that Adam can show you later with the floor plans. There's also a pedestrian entrance here by the vehicular entrance at the lower level, and then there is another entry here at midpoint that has stairs up to the first floor where the residential part starts. So yeah, so pedestrian circulation, there's kind of a sidewalk along both sides. There are a number of walls here. You know, the site is a little bit challenging, and so there's going to be a good bit of earthwork required to make it all work here. There's a wall here that starts at grade, and then essentially it's higher on this side of the wall and lower on this side. As you come down the slope, it kind of transitions to a balance in this area, and then this is a wall with a lower area here, upper here. Okay.
Okay, you mentioned the handicapped accessible spaces when you first come in. How does that work? They go into the first level of the building?
Correct. So right here, so we're showing that the parking spaces here. There will be ADA tip downs, probably here, and we'll probably have one there as well. And then they can come in. This level is an at-grade entry for ADA. Mm-hmm.
So that's like one big pile of ledge, isn't it, up there?
There's a little rock up there. Yeah. There was we did a geotech study with some borings, and ledge kind of ranges from 1/2 foot to 12 feet down, kind of depending on where you are on the site. So think we understand that there's going to be some ledge removal required.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
We got this note that talked about turnaround, dump access, and I would add fire truck and ambulance access to the property. It is a funnel development, the way you've organized it here, but they're talking about how do you get in and around this?
Yeah, so in terms of vehicles can come down through here and make a turn. Now, it's not necessarily been designed for a fire truck. There's going to be sprinklers in the building. I believe you met with the fire chief on that. Maybe Ro can speak to that question real
Can
quick.
I clarify one thing? They say there is no place to dump off or turn around for winter services, so I think they're referring to pushing the banks of snow.
Right.
Okay, I can address that as well.
I have spoken with the fire chief, and he shared the plans, and he said they look fine, that the building is completely up to code based on how it's been designed. So he gave us a thumbs up.
Essentially, the NFPA code for site access allows for this kind of access when you have a sprinkler building, because the fire truck doesn't have to get all the way around all sides of the building.
And although you didn't say it, on her ADA, is there an elevator down there at that end?
It's been a little while. I'll let Adam address the questions inside the building.
Okay.
I mean, I guess you can answer that. There is an elevator.
The elevator's in the center of the building.
Yeah, I think it's kind of midpoint in here. In terms of snow removal, I think there would be a few different strategies here. You probably would push some this way. And you'd end up pushing most of this down this way and off the edge probably, which is some things that we'll be addressing during site plan review, I'm sure, as we develop the design.
So that just slopes right off of the back of the parking lot back there?
Well, this will be kind of a flat area, and we'll probably have guardrail back there, and then the wall will drop off after that. There'll be likely guardrail and a pedestrian fence, I would
So the
imagine.
drainage is pretty easy going right off that way? Drainage.
Well, I mean, the drainage we will probably need to collect and provide some kind of underground detention is our current thought, in terms of, probably down here in this lower area.
That's really a planning board issue.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I know.
So how many parking spaces did we say, 111?
Right, so the variance requested was for 111. I will point out, we've shown about 115 right now, but we haven't ironed out things like necessarily a dumpster location, and there may be some other things, so we need a little bit of flexibility as we move to final design. So we're providing at least 111 spaces total. And
Nice presentation.
I think that kind of covers the basics on the site plan. You guys have any questions for me regarding things outside the building?
Aye.
Okay.
Anybody else have a question?
I've got one that's just kind of curious. Has anybody thought about, right there where your entrance comes in, there's a sharp corner? The students, the other Langdon Woods setup is, and that's very narrow. Has there been any thought there about widening that up or whatever? I mean, during the winter, you can, lucky if you get one car through there.
Any time of year, it's one car.
Yeah.
Because they're parking along the side?
All
right?
parked
Oh, no, it's the lower part.
Oh, this lower part here?
Yeah, right in there.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't heard anything to that effect. I don't think, I mean, I guess it's potentially something that the town could consider. I think it's all through private property there, though. Actually, it's Plymouth State property.
Well,
This portion, sorry.
go ahead. Yep.
I was going to say this portion, I suppose, is on this property. So there would be potential we could possibly widen out a portion of it, but not all the way down, really, just because it's not on this subject parcel.
Can you explain a little more about the easement? I read about it in the paperwork, but I don't totally understand what it is.
Sure. Maybe Phil can address that. I
When
do
the
have
time
it here,
comes.
but
You can save it, you don't have to answer it right now.
Well, I might as well answer it now. It goes to the question that we had raised about the frontage requirement. For the record, my name is Phil Hastings with Cleveland Wires and Bass. You can see on the site plan the area marked with a dashed line. Done a limited title research into that. Our initial thinking was that this was a public street. Toby Road was a public street all the way. It turns out, at least according to the records we've seen, that this is actually an easement area that was granted by a prior owner to Plymouth State. So the only frontage on a public street is really at this property line, with the easement continuing.
Is that where Armory Road meets Toby Road? Or is it up further from that?
A little up further.
Yeah, it's hard to, it's a little bit unclear. It looks like Toby Road is that entire, makes the turn and goes
See it
back.
here. That's where the easement is. And there's
Do you know how much the actual frontage is that's on Toby Road? Is that,
basically, that went straight across that. Just died into it.
Yeah, we've got,
She took the easement.
there's 153 feet
okay.
along the easement area, which would be maybe about 50 feet, probably, from this point to that point.
Okay, so 50 feet is actually on Toby Road.
I would say approximately 50 feet is really the width of the right-of-way.
might be more like
So-
33 feet.
3350.
So that is the, when you guys are asking for a variance relative to frontage, 33 feet is what you actually have.
Well, we actually don't think we need a variance. That's one of the issues that we've had with Mr. Murphy, is how we get to a compliant frontage. In my mind, it's a matter of a determination by this board that frontage along an easement constitutes sufficient frontage. Is also an argument that Mr. Murphy pointed out to me, that this is a grandfathered lot. This lot has existed in this condition.
A lot of record.
For years, a lot of record. So we're not expanding a non-conformity, a lawful non-conformity anyway. That's another way this board could address it before you can get to the variance issue.
One more thing you should keep in mind, Madam Chair and members, is that by cleaning that road, as we have for a long period of time, it's essentially become a Class 5 road from the property line to where the turnaround is. That's where the town would plow the snow up and around and come back. That was Joe's concern. Even though it shows on the map that the road stops or runs into the property at that point, it does continue and it is maintained by the town. So it has the status of a town road.
I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, does anybody have any questions, any of the architect, or anything else you'd like to know about?
Well, Adam can go over the building and the specifics inside and rendering.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I missed your name, sir.
So good evening. For the record, Adam Wagner.
Adam
I'm one of the
Wagner,
partners
thank
with
you.
Market Square Architects.
Okay.
I'm going to start here on this plan, just to describe some of the things that Will just covered. This is that lower level parking level of the building. Basically, you're 1 story below grade on this side of the building, and you're at grade daylight on the far end because of the way the slope works. Entrance into the garage is here. Central elevator core is in the middle of the building, and then the stair cores are located on these ends. We also have some amenity space proposed downstairs, perhaps a small fitness center. We have bike storage as well. I can get into the upper floor plans, but I really want to get to the rendering of this thing because I'm sure you just want to know what it looks like. But before I do that, just the upper level plans, central corridor which connects those two stairwells for egress and connects to the center elevator. So it's just a double loaded corridor, bar building, pretty simple and straightforward. With that, I will flip this around and show you what we were thinking for the appearance of this building. So as was previously stated, we have a 4-story building. Here you see your at grade on the first floor, and then by the time you get all the way to this end of the building, you have the basement poking out. There's the access into the garage there. This would be the other entry into the center stair where the elevator is located. 4-story building, breaking up the mass with the use of some sort of a stone product at the base, and then a couple different hardy panel products, horizontal siding, paneling, a couple different colors to try to break up the scale. We are proposing a pitched roof. The pitched roof may have a flat portion on it. We're still working through what our mechanical system may be, and we want to be able to put the condensers up there if in fact we are going to have air conditioning, just because they would clutter the site. One of the benefits of the hardy panel siding is that bugs don't eat it. It doesn't have to be painted as often, and it doesn't rot like wood does. So very durable materials. And really we're trying to present a building here that is appropriate for housing, but doesn't quite feel as institutional as some of the other properties you might find on campus because this is a private development. If you'd like to see anything further, I'd be more than willing to show you what I have. Or
what do you have, just big ventilation underneath there for all that part that's underneath the residences?
For the garage level?
Yeah.
It will have to be mechanically vented. So because it's an enclosed garage space, it will have to have carbon monoxide monitoring. It will have to have vents and louvers and everything. And when the carbon monoxide levels get too high, opens the hatches, cranks up the fans, and evacuates that bad air.
It's steel frame on the inside? What is it?
So the lower level will have a podium level that will be steel and concrete, because we need to maintain a fire separation between where the cars are and where the residents are. Everything above that podium, the top 4 floors, would be wood framed.
Nice plan.
Very nice looking. Okay.
Shall we hand it over to?
Okay, sure.
So I'll bring this back to where we started at the beginning on the procedural stuff and the legal stuff. You have 5 separate applications before you. There are effectively 3 variance requests, a request for a special exception, and a request for an administrative determination from you. I would propose that I would give you sort of a broad overview. You have the material in each of the applications. As you can see, there's a lot of overlap between them, a lot of commonality between the applications. So I'd like to go through sort of the common elements. I'll try not to go verbatim from what you have before you in writing, but hit on some of the high notes. And then I'll take each of the individual requests after that broad overview. And in terms of the order, I think it makes sense to address what you have as number 6 on your agenda, the variance, request for a variance to permit construction and use of a multiple dwelling unit of 68 units. That's really the linchpin of our request. Second would be the variance number 4, request for an area variance for the construction of a 68-unit multiple dwelling unit on 104 square foot parcel. And then the building height variance would be the next one. And then we'll loop back to parking, and finally the frontage one. I think.
It's exactly the order I thought we should go.
Okay, good. So key points that are important for each of the requests that this board should take into consideration. As you've heard and you've seen from the plans, the property is uniquely situated. It's surrounded completely by university property. It's in a relatively remote area, and frankly, it doesn't lend itself very well to any other type of development. In fact, most, if not all, of the uses that are permitted as of right in the civic institutional district are ill-suited, impractical, or just financially unfeasible for this property. For example, you could put a single-family home on this lot. The site wouldn't be particularly attractive for any non-student related housing, given where it's situated in relation to the campus. Uses in the civic institutional district that are allowed as of right are banks, libraries, childcare facilities, theaters, churches. Access to the site really precludes those traffic-dependent uses. It just wouldn't be convenient to try to propose that type of use. And finally, any kind of civic use or use by the university itself would result in a loss of taxable property to the town. So this is very unique that it's a privately owned lot within really the heart of the campus. Another point to make that's common to all of these applications is that the master plan, the town's master plan, specifically encourages the type of use that's being proposed here. The land use chapter in your master plan, for example, says, makes a recommendation to target and provide privately owned student housing close to the university, but outside the traditional single-family neighborhoods in street-level village commercial district. This is exactly the type of project your master plan wants to encourage to take the pressure off of the older residential areas of town. There'll be little or no impact on neighboring properties. Other than the university, the next closest neighborhood is over 900 feet away. It's separated by a dense forest to the west and north. The nearby university properties, particularly Langdon Woods and Merrill Place residence halls, are comparably sized on comparable areas of land and are used for comparable purposes. If this was a university proposed project, the zoning ordinance would not limit or prohibit this in any way. They could simply build this project as it's being proposed without oversight by this board or the planning board.
Does anybody know how many bedrooms there are in those other two buildings?
In
Langdon Woods.
In Langdon Mills and Merrill Place Road, do you have a comparison?
I think probably about 600.
600 in Langdon Woods?
Yeah, there's a lot, yeah.
And the other one, Merrill Place?
Well, that's combined, yeah.
I think I have that.
I think there's 400 at Langdon, something like that. Yeah. Or Merrill, the new one, yeah.
The new one is mostly singles.
Yeah.
So in a general sense, we think this is very a reasonable use of this property, a uniquely situated property. It will avoid an unnecessary hardship to the property owner in that there's no really feasible other use for the property. It's consistent with the spirit and intent of the ordinance and with the public interest in general. It will promote substantial justice and will not cause any harm to neighboring properties or otherwise have any harmful effect on the community. In fact, I think it will be a tremendous benefit to the community to have this building in this location. So that's the common features. I'll take some time to talk about the specific requests, starting with our request for our variance to build 68 units in a single building. As you know, your zoning ordinance doesn't prohibit large multifamily housing, nor does it specifically allow anything over 6 units in a single building. So this is an unusual request in light of the literal wording of your zoning ordinance. It seems clear to me that your zoning ordinance probably didn't contemplate student housing, privately owned student housing of this type. When your ordinance went into effect, I think most people associated student housing of these types of facilities would be university college owned and not a private endeavor. But the economics and housing needs and the housing supply for students have changed since the adoption of the ordinance. So we're asking this board to apply your ordinance flexibly to address those needs. Larger scale projects are necessary to serve the demand for student housing with the least impact on Plymouth's single-family neighborhoods. And similar variances have been granted for similar properties. Mr. Murphy brought to my attention the Harbor Homes project that you granted a variance for, I think in 2017 for a 30-unit building, again on a fairly unique piece of property. This is not dissimilar to that. It's slightly larger, obviously, but it's also in a better location for the size. It's scaled appropriately. So in light of the Harbor Homes decision, it would be inequitable for you to deny the variance for a 68-unit facility as proposed today. Closely related to the number of units is the lot size per unit requirement. Your ordinance would require typically a lot having about 208,000 square feet for a building of this with this number of units in it. This lot is 148, a little bit over 148,000 square feet. So we're asking for a variance for a smaller lot for the number of units. But despite the ordinance, this lot in this size is more than adequate for the proposed building. The project will comply with all lot coverage requirements. The lot, as you've seen, can accommodate sufficient parking for the use. The property will be served by municipal water and sewer. It doesn't require wells. It doesn't require a septic system. And there's a large amount of open space to the north, west, and south. So the neighboring properties are not likely to be developed anytime soon, which lends itself to having a smaller lot size for this particular building. With respect to the variance to exceed the maximum building height, the stated maximum building height in the zoning ordinance is 35 feet. The proposed building in this case will be approximately 65 feet in height. Because of the grade of the property, the calculation is difficult, but we've determined that it's 65 feet in height. As Will and Adam and Roe have testified, the building will meet all building code requirements. The proposed height is not inconsistent with the requirements of the International Building Code. The building will have a sprinklered fire suppression system. The fire department has reviewed the plans. We understand that they have sufficient equipment and trained personnel to serve a building of this height. There will be no life safety issues presented by the height of the building. There'll be no materially adverse visual impact due to the height of the building. The tree line around the site is mature. Most of the trees, as much of the trees as possible, will be kept there as Will made clear. There's wetlands around the site. That area will not be disturbed, so it creates a visual buffer virtually around the entire building. And although it would be theoretically possible to build a shorter building that would be more compliant with your ordinance, the effect of that would be twofold. One is you disturb a lot more area of land. There'd be a much greater amount of impervious lot coverage if you built a smaller building. And the larger footprint would impact the wetlands and slopes, which we don't believe is in the public's best interest.
Did you get that? What was that again? You're saying that if you built a smaller building, that it would be more impact on the wetlands?
Yes, theoretically.
For the same number of units, Tom.
To get the same number of units, you'd have to spread the building out.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay.
Lower floors
Oh, I
spread
see.
out.
If you lower the height of it.
So it's a trade-off in our mind of building up or building out, and what is a more compatible for this particular site, and I think building up is much more compatible. To address so that addresses the three variances we're asking for. The special exception we're asking for is parking. The ordinance requires, frankly, I find the ordinance a little bit difficult to work through on the parking, but Mr. Murphy helped me. The ordinance requires 1.5 spaces for the first bedroom unit and a half space for each additional bedroom per unit. Am I expressing that correct? So in that case, with the number of bedrooms being proposed here, it would result in a requirement for 128 parking spaces. As Will testified, we are proposing somewhere around 111, maybe a little bit more, depending on how the design gets worked out.
Excuse me, may I ask a question?
Sure.
It sort of depends on how you categorize the property as far as parking is concerned. If you look at a residential institution, like a dormitory, and this perhaps is, that's one per room.
Right.
Which is more than what you're proposing.
I defer to Mr. Murphy to how...
Well, you can defer to him all you want. The fact is, you guys are making the proposal, not us.
We've come up with a requirement of 128 is what your ordinance would require for this type of use, because it's not a dormitory, it's a multi-family dwelling in our mind. We think to build 128 parking spaces would be excessive. There's going to be 120 residents at any one time. Based on walk to campuses, history, both here in Plymouth and its other sites, it far exceeds what would be the typical demand for parking. The proposed 111 spaces is about 90, would provide parking for 93% of the residences. And Ro, did you tell me that it's about 87, between 80 or 70% is typical?
Yeah, we have the handouts. It says 82% in 2017 of walk-to-campus tenants had a vehicle, up from 76% in 2016.
And that's certainly the strategy with the location of this building, is to be less vehicle dependent, to encourage the walkability for a variety of reasons, and that seems to be what this generation of college students desire. Finally, on the frontage issue, we addressed that a little bit before. The ordinance simply is unclear about how to calculate the required frontage on this site. We're asking the board to make one of three determinations from an administrative standpoint, interpreting your ordinance. One is that the lot meets the frontage requirement due to the easement that exists on the site. The second alternative is to confirm that the lot is lawfully non-conforming and continue as such. The third alternative is to say that the lot can be brought into compliance with the lot frontage requirement if the applicant dedicates the easement area for public use. which is a matter of going to the planning board and showing that easement area as a public street, which then would create more than sufficient frontage. That's exactly what happened in the Harbor Homes site plan. They have a hammerhead turnaround that provides frontage, which they showed on their site plans as an extension, effectively, of the public way, and that provided frontage. It does not matter from the applicant's standpoint which of those three alternatives you find, as long as there's a determination that we have legal frontage to develop this parcel as proposed. If the board, for some reason, is not inclined to make that determination, we think we've met the variance requirements in any event, given the uniqueness of the site, the history of the site, and how it's laid out on the ground. That's all I have to cover, but I'm very happy to answer any questions.
Okay. I'd open it up for board members to ask.
Yeah. Sir, you took a leap. If we look at section 304 of our zoning ordinance.
Yep. What page are you on, Dave?
I'm on page 16.
Yes.
It talks about what can be done in each zone, and in the CI zone, 3 to 6 units by special exception.
Yes.
It doesn't talk about more being allowed. It says, if you read the preamble to that, these are the uses that are allowed in each zone, 3 to 6 units.
Yes, by special exception. That's why we're asking for a variance from that provision.
But 3 to 6 units is what applies to that zone, is it not?
By special exception, yes.
Thank you. The second one is precedent. The fact that a variance may be given in one development, does not apply to another development. Each one has to stand on its own merits.
I agree.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone?
Well, I just hear these numbers that there's 600 bedrooms, and I drive down there and I look at that place and it's like that there is so many residents in that little quarter-mile square down there. I mean, I don't know how to bring it into, I'm tempted to say something about, well, what's the traffic going to be like if all these kids decide to go home Friday night? And we've got that steep road down the bottom there that just dumps out into a nowhere spot before a hill. I mean, this is such a good-looking plan. I mean, these guys have really done their homework, and it's just very impressive. I can see this being the future. But on the other end, you step back and you think about this little town's going to have, like 1,300 units in this little postage stamp area. What about the congestion down there? He's right there. I went up there when there was snow, and going through those you're driving through these student apartments to go out that way, and down this way, I mean, you can go down Bell Road, but it's like, that goes down there, but, Toby Road, excuse me, but then the other way is to go up behind the Armory, and I don't even know what kind of a road is that. Right. Is that like goes into their parking lot?
I think those are good concerns, and I think there are all concerns that the planning board is probably best suited to address.
Well, I know, but we got to vote on whether it's going to be you're
voting on the density,
Yeah.
essentially.
And we got to say that it's not going to be a detriment to the neighborhood, the community. That I mean, I get your story about the rest of it's all college, and it's hard. You got an example of these big buildings right next door to you.
And to answer your earlier question, I was able to find the number of bedrooms in the new dorm. It's 378, and I think Langdon Woods is probably about the same size. So total.
They're both like 378, you think?
I think that's. I know Merrill Place is 378. And to address.
So Langdon Woods isn't. You don't think it is 600?
No, what I was saying, the combined total
he said
was
combined.
around 600.
But
I think it's a little more than that.
I'm sorry. Well, I mean, it's funny to sit here and to have such a history with the town, and I really don't know anything about what the college has for rooms. And you know.
I guess to answer your question about the traffic, the alternative is that the kids live miles away and they're driving in, creating more traffic. So our hope is that by putting the property or the apartment building adjacent to campus, that people would be inclined to walk. So hence our name. That's what we're promoting. What we stand for is walkability. It keeps roads or cars off the roads, reduces air pollution, and actually creates more of a dense sort of walkable community. That's the benefit in my mind. We see in a lot of college towns these apartment buildings built 2 or 3 miles away from campus, and kids are having to drive in, creating more of a parking need that the university is trying to provide, and actually sucking the life out of the university community because people are living, a couple miles away. We think there's a stronger benefit of having them close.
Okay.
And actually benefits their college experience as well.
Okay. Does anyone have any? Dave, I think you had a question.
Sort of a technical question. In cases for a special exception, the Superior Court seems to have said that other communities that are impacted by this should be notified. And this is clearly visible by Holderness. Did you notify them?
I think that's a determination that gets made by the board, whether it's deemed a development of regional impact. If this board is inclined to do that, it's within your prerogative to do so and continue this hearing until adequate notice is given.
Okay. No, I understand. Thank you.
All right, did anyone else have any questions?
No, I guess not.
Ready to consider? Okay, well, thank you very much. I will open the public hearing now and welcome anyone to speak in favor of the application. Is there anybody here? Yes. Please identify yourself, even though I know you.
Resident of Plymouth and a property manager for student rentals. I'm not speaking opposed or in favor of it. I have a question for the applicant. With your building and the new changes at PSU for administration and the off-campus requirements, which I don't know if you're totally familiar with, of how they require students to live on campus. Currently, they're freshmen and sophomores, and it's my feeling those rules are going to change with the new administration. That's my feeling. I'm not saying as a fact, I'm saying that's my feeling. Mm-hmm. So when that changes, and if the rumors go where PSU builds a new dorm, and they get stricter and stricter on their requirements to live on campus, what happens to 68 units new coming in at 120 beds? I don't know how 120 beds could have been filled right now this year in our re-rental process. I don't see that there's 120 extra people out there looking to live off campus. So I guess I just would ask the applicant if PSU is giving you any indication that their standards are going to change for requiring more people to live on campus, less people to live, or where they're going to be in 2020. Are they going to have another narrow place, or they were going to require all their students to live on campus, and then I wouldn't be here. So that's my concern with adding this amount of students for off-campus housing when there's a lot for PSU that's changing that we do not know about. And I guess it's just a question to the applicant if PSU has reached out to you and answered any of those questions.
Right, okay, thanks. Please answer.
I've met with President Burks twice about the project, and he has suggested they do not plan to change their housing policies. The only project that they plan to do that's sort of on the books is to actually renovate existing buildings as needed. So I think, I believe it's Smith Dorm is offline. So they don't have any plans in the near term. If we could all be out of business by 2020 if the school has a dramatic reduction in enrollment, or those are all risks that we face. I know you're full for the fall, correct?
Not totally.
Okay. So I asked our property manager today, how our competitors are doing. We're already leased for the fall, and from what I gathered, our main competitors are basically, that with a few beds exception, are full for this coming fall, and they've been full this school year. So we have, we've leased up early and fully since we've been here, and from every indication there is a need, and there are still students who are living away from campus, driving in, or blocks away, and we think that this provides another potentially better option for them.
Okay, thank you.
That's what your analysis of the market is that there's a need? Just because you're full, I mean, don't you have an idea? Doesn't the college release numbers about how many kids got accepted and how many kids are living in the dorms? And
we track that very closely, sure.
In the state, I get the state calling me every year, doing a survey about the apartments in town. Did you look into that too?
Yeah, we track that yearly, absolutely, and it's critical. And so we look at
it's critical in the demand, you mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, we look at enrollment numbers, freshman enrollment, how that translates as they move off campus. Look at the number of competitors. Our analysis shows that there's still plenty of demand.
So what percentage of the market is this 120 kids?
So there are, I want to say about 2,000 kids who live off campus, and I don't have these numbers tip of my tongue. And folks like Walk to Campus and others who are really professional landlords probably only provide housing for about half that number. So the rest of the students are living with sort of unregistered absentee landlords. I don't know where they live, quite frankly. It's hard to know. We know how many beds the professionally run landlords have. And we, Fox Park Apartments, we know how many beds are there. Those are not all student, but there's a large number of students who are living somewhere out away, and I think that's the market we're trying to capture.
Thanks.
Okay, could I ask anybody else like to say anything? I'm McLean's. Okay, and I will close our public hearing. And I would ask the board, would you like to have a discussion first? And I think the order that Mr. Hastings went through the applications was a good order. But would the board members like to?
Okay, which number are we working on first?
Well, he mentioned first.
Number 5 on your document.
68-unit, multiple-unit building. The variance, the 3 variances, then the 68 units on 148,000 square feet, the density, and then the variance on the height, 65 inches, those 3 first. But what, do we like to have a discussion, brief discussion, and then find facts?
Sure.
Okay, Dave?
Well, I guess my difficulty with this is that they're asking for something that can't be done anywhere in the town. And I think that decision belongs to the voters. As I read we can't spot zone a spot. That's really up to the town to change the criteria for a zone. And the planning board has had exactly what was pointed out for a number of years and never brought forward a proposition to change the criteria for that zone. Similarly, if you're going to talk about the survey that's done when they do the master plan, the number one thing is to maintain the small town atmosphere. That's the number one thing.
Right.
And this certainly is not that. So I have concerns on it. It isn't allowed anywhere, let alone here. And it's a zoning change. It's not just a variance. And I've got concerns about that.
Okay, well, thank you. I would just like to draw the board's attention to our zoning ordinance, page 16, and I'll read the sentence. It's the same sentence I referred to also when another large building came before us. On page 16, it says, if a specific use in our table of uses is not listed, then it is not allowed unless the planning board finds the use is sufficiently similar to an enumerated, permitted, or special exception use. And what that means to me is I feel a proposal this big requiring 3 variances, a special exception, and an overturning of an administrative decision. I feel it's really up to the planning board to tell us whether that's sufficiently similar to allow us the flexibility to decide, or to propose an amendment to the zoning ordinance.
So you want them
And
to
then
go
the
and
people.
determine that it's a multifamily? Like that?
Pardon? I would just think, our zoning ordinance reads that there's no more than 3 to 6 units. So if somebody wants to build something that much larger, I feel it should go before the planning board and as a zoning amendment, and let the people vote on it too. Because, we mentioned there are 2 great large institutions that were just built by the college. We have no say over that because they don't have to abide by our local zoning, as we all know. We also know, people who live here, that the college, when they built Langdon Woods 1, there was supposed to be a Langdon Woods 2 that was in the planning, and we understand that maybe because of finances, that might be off the table. So it would be great for them to get the same result with somebody privately building. I would propose the site that Langdon 2 was supposed to be on is a much better, wide-open place to have something as large as this building. So I'm very uncomfortable. I think we can go through the variance criteria and everything, but to have something this large come before us that is not, there is no place in the zoning ordinance that allows this kind of thing. So I would feel that we'd at least have the planning board weigh in on it and tell us whether it's sufficiently that's something that we could grant a special exception or a variance on.
I disagree. I think it's up to the voters. There is nothing that prevents this lot being used the way it's zoned.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, that's
so
true.
the owner can use it the way it's zoned. Doesn't need a variance unless they want to do something that is beyond what's allowed in the zoning law. Mm-hmm. And that's what they're asking for.
Right. Well, that's it. Strictly speaking, a variance is permission to violate the zoning ordinance.
On those points, the truth is that we're the board that makes things like this happen. And that just because it isn't allowed, it's kind of like the judge. If the judge says, that's allowed, you're going to do that, then everybody goes, okay.
Right.
And it's like that with us. It's not allowed until we say, that's reasonable, that's what it should be. Mm-hmm. So I think it's 2 different arguments, whether it's reasonable and whether it is good for the neighborhood or all these other things, mm-hmm. but we can't just hide behind the idea that it isn't there. It isn't specified, so we can't do that, because we did the elderly, we did the vet's home,
right.
And we've given some 12 units, I think, up at Blueberry Hill. And so we kind of can do it. Whether or not it's a good idea, mm-hmm. That's funny. That I just can't help that I'm really voting blind here, because I have no idea about what the market's. I'm surprised, 100 new homes coming into this market when we just got through finishing up one that has, 350, and the other one with 350. And, I feel bad for the neighborhoods that are having the single families invaded, and that's got its own set of problems. But anyhow, that's all I wanted to say, is that we can approve things like that. It's my opinion of it. Whether or not it's right, and whether or not the town should come up with something that says, larger buildings may be considered if reasonable, or something like that, that kind of gives us another door. But as the ordinance reads, it's 6-unit buildings. I mean, that is true.
Right. Well, and that's what I mean. Our job is to interpret the zoning ordinance that's here and now, not one that's not before us, Yeah. So.
Another point. I don't think it's our job to judge whether they're going to be financially successful or not. If someone wants to take a risk and go ahead and do something, build into a market that's full, that's their right to do that.
Yeah, but that can cause panic in other places in your town from
maybe
these homeowners that now
maybe you might think that's against the public interest then.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That was my point.
Okay, well, would you like to make findings of fact here and go through the criteria? Or how do other members feel?
We're going to start with this one, is that right?
Yeah, we'll start with,
Okay.
but I think we can make findings of fact for, that will pretty much apply universally. Okay? Okay, let's see, findings.
We really can't say that it's allowed in that zone. We can't say that. That's usually our first finding, is
just say-
it is a use that's allowed in the zone. Well, but it isn't. You could say it's a use that would be allowed in the zone by variance.
Okay, proposal is for, how about for 68 unit, multi-unit
68 unit, 120
building,
bedroom, 120 bedroom.
120 bedrooms on, and let's give the footage,
3.5 acres, 3.4.
3.4 acres, or 148,104 square feet,
In the civic institution zone.
okay? In the civic and institutional zone, okay? Site, how about site is surrounded
Yeah.
By wetlands and,
by PSU,
wetlands and woods.
Buildings, wetlands, let's see, bordered by wetlands. And what else did you say?
Woods.
And woods.
There's a 30 feet of frontage on the road.
30 feet?
That's what they said.
That's on Toby Road.
They're arguing about the
Well,
right
that's
of
for us to
way,
decide.
Yeah. So, but the
So
lot,
much of it goes into the other ones. Do we find fact for all of these?
Well, I think we can find universal facts, and
Universal
then
facts,
each,
okay.
if we need to add facts to the individual applications.
the property, the meets and bounds of the property at the entrance is 35 feet. Is that what you said?
Was it 30 or 35?
Yeah, meets and bounds of property include 35 feet of frontage
Yeah.
on Toby Road.
Yeah. And there is a right-of-way.
Yeah, there is a,
That, that could,
of approximately 150 feet.
yeah. That could be considered.
50 feet.
The closest residential neighborhood is 900 feet away.
Oh, that's good.
Okay. Neighborhood is 900 feet.
Madam Chair, I think it's important to point out that that section of road that does run through the property after crossing the property line is a town-maintained road.
Oh.
Yeah,
yes.
there is a right-of-way of approximately 150 feet that could be considered,
Oh, okay. So
as
let's say there's
frontage.
a right-of-way of town-maintained road.
yeah, okay, there's a right-of-way of town-maintained road.
You want to make a fact about the other dormitories?
Yeah, I think that's very applicable.
Okay,
There's
two other
Right.
dorms are nearby, or
Two-
within the
two-
vicinity.
two other
Two other,
dorms of over 300 units.
yeah, multi-level, two other multi-level,
Yeah.
level
7 stories, I think.
dorms, one's 7, one's 5, I think. Two other multi-level dorms
7.
are in
I think
vicinity,
they're all 7. All the
recent,
dormitories on campus are 7.
recently built by PSU.
Building is to be 5 stories tall.
Building, proposed building is to be 5 stories tall with
65.
underground parking.
Yeah, 65 feet with, not counting into it potential
So the
65
proposed
feet.
building-
mechanics on the roof.
The proposed
Yeah.
building is proposed is 65 feet high, and the,
Minus, yeah, 65 feet high, minus
35 is the,
what do you call those, mechanicals? Yeah, mechanicals.
AC
Rooftops.
units.
Yeah.
Rooftop mechanical units.
And those are not counted in our zoning ordinance.
Right, I understand that, yeah.
65 and the regulation calls for 35.
Right, and zoning ordinance restricts to 35, okay?
I didn't get this, you guys were talking about this parking, and he said that 128, if you take his 3 units and his 2 units and multiply it times the 1.5 and 2, then he comes to 128, and he's providing 111, is that, did you
Right.
understand it like that?
Yes, yeah.
It doesn't seem like a very big
So
difference for
if
me.
it's a
when I-
dormitory, they're supposed to have 1 parking space per unit,
person.
per person.
Yeah, in their residential institution, whatever, under the zoning ordinance.
So when
That would be
Madam Chair.
120?
By definition, this is not a residential institution.
Right, in the zoning ordinance.
Right, it is a multi-dwelling unit building with whatever number of
Right,
units.
so that's why that is appropriate. that,
Correct.
The 1.5.
Right, the 1.5. And it's another thing our zoning ordinance just didn't contemplate or deliberately didn't include larger buildings.
But
So-
my point is that this 111 to 128 isn't really a deal buster here.
No.
Since the name of the company is Walk the Campus and
Oh, it's
they
just
live
finding
on-
facts now, though, yeah.
Right, yeah, we're just doing facts. So
Okay, yeah.
111
This is-
parking spots are,
proposed and required would be 128.
are,
I think part of the parking problem on campus is that while we want a walking campus, the reality is students drive everywhere. And they drive from one end of campus to the other.
Right.
And so that's why more parking spaces is appropriate, because you're gonna get people going there that don't live there.
right,
You also have guests who go there.
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Which is a sizable number of people.
Especially on weekends.
Yeah, and, okay, so what other facts can we, general facts that we leaned on to, let's see.
This company puts forward a pretty nice presentation, and they seem to have a track record. I haven't checked them out. I mean, I'm sure Brian knows something. I know they have a webpage, and that's about it. But the company put on a good presentation and appears reputable.
Okay.
Just put that. It's not like doesn't look like a fly-by-night.
Is that a fact?
That's what we're saying. They've got, they're in 8 markets across the country. The presenter is in 8 markets.
How about applicant has proven experience in other campus areas?
Yeah. Thank you.
Did we make a finding there are going to be 120 people living there?
Yeah.
That was,
Well, I think we put that, we had, we have something about the room numbers.
68, we said we had 68 units
Unit.
with 120 bedrooms.
Yes, with 120 bedrooms. Okay, all right. Anything else? We have the wetlands, we have,
it's gonna rely, I don't know if this is important to us, but the town water and sewer.
oh yes,
yeah.
that's very important,
Yeah.
yes.
Public utilities are available for the project.
Yes, site
They're within so many feet of the property.
has
Right.
water and sewer available or nearby. Okay,
Did they have anything input on this at all? I wonder? Brian, did they have any input, water and sewer on this?
No, I talked to Jason a little bit about it, saying it was coming up, but that if it made it through the ZBA, because it was a little bit sparse on the physical details and the engineering, that he would be expecting a full presentation at site plan review.
okay.
Oh,
All right.
and they intend to be a tax-paying
Oh, right,
dormitory.
Not dormitory, multi-unit dwelling.
Multi-unit.
Yeah,
The proposal is for a,
private,
Taxpaying
yes,
entity.
applicant is private entity. And, building, property will be taxable.
the college bought them, it wouldn't be
I
taxable.
was gonna say, we see what happened with
And
the
it's happened
cogen
over
plant
and over
right
again.
next door, didn't we? That used to
And
pay
over and over
taxes too.
again.
Yeah,
Better
applicant,
way, and what better way to get a dormitory and not have to go through the
Let
headaches of the
somebody build it
architect.
and buy it.
applicant.
That's a-
okay, so right now, the applicant is a private entity and the property will be taxable. Gonna hold you to that. All right,
Okay.
do you think we have any, wanna go through the criteria?
Did you make, did we talk at all about the congestion that's possible for the highway concerns? The
okay.
congestion on Toby Road,
Oh, yeah.
All right.
We have a
Okay, how
wonderful
about
one.
that? Highway
highway department,
Department expressed concern
around no pedestrian.
about pedestrian, about congestion of vehicular and pedestrian traffic.
It's the bottlenecks, so the congestion, and then pedestrian walkings in the
Yep.
roadway, no safe passage.
Oh, there isn't any sidewalk there.
Safety.
Oh,
And like way that the cars pull out right now, and
No, that's the kind of.
Safety
and then
concerns.
that corner, the students come
Yeah.
flying around that
Yeah,
corner.
it is, anybody who's been up there knows how very hectic it is, and even when there's not snow in the way, I think.
While we're talking about that building something in that area just kind of pushes your flow of traffic of your normal traffic to other parts. You've seen an increase of traffic on Upper Highland Street. Emerson Street is being traveled so much now that it's worse than the Ho Chi Minh Trail.
Right. Yeah.
All
Because of
that-
the new
Yeah,
dorm.
because of the new dorm.
Yeah,
You've seen a lot of extra traffic up there, Butch. I mean, you're right down in it, so.
And you see a lot coming down and using all of Emerson now. And people actually avoid Merrill Street quite a bit during times of
Traffic
switching
is peak.
because of the foot traffic. Actually, I've had to put an officer on the crosswalk up there. So you're going to be adding another 100 and so many kids
Yeah,
up there.
20,
So
yep.
it does kind of, might condense them in one spot, but it also affects the town in an entirely different one. Flow of traffic, normal traffic. Trucks now are using High Street and stuff like that. To bypass Main Street, they go up High Street, and then they use Upper Emerson and going out, so.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a total lack of central planning down there from our side.
All right, do you feel we're ready to go through the criteria?
The first.
Okay, we'll go on the first one, which is construction of 68.
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Yes.
We've been listening to your deliberations so far. It seems that there are a lot of concerns, some issues that need to be more fully explored by us. I don't know if it would be appropriate at this point to suggest a continuance of the application to give the applicant a little more time to consider other alternatives that might address some of these concerns, or in the alternative, withdrawing the application without prejudice to come back later.
I would be amenable to that. How do the board members feel?
I think it's their decision.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just saying we would be willing to suspend deliberations, and if you wanted
Would you
to.
want to file a new application, or would you want to reform what you've got?
I think we need to process some of the concerns that we've heard. Quite frankly, I think this has been very useful to us to hear. I think it's been constructive to hear the concerns about traffic, particularly some of the density concerns, a lot of the site design concerns. So I think I'd like the opportunity, and the applicant would like the opportunity to meet with its consultants and see if we want to go forward with the applications as proposed, or whether there's some modifications that we can make to maybe better address those concerns and come back in a month.
Okay, I move we table the matter for the
Okay.
next meeting.
We could do that. Do I have a second?
Second that, yep.
Okay, table deliberations on the 68 multi-unit dwelling.
And if you table it, just a
prejudice.
procedure, if you table it, I believe it might have
Till
to
the next
be
meeting.
re-noticed, unless specifically
We'll
to a next
continue it.
meeting.
perhaps
continue it.
Yes.
It's still tabled it.
change, yeah, why don't you
Change it
change
to
the motion to continue? And we have a
Yep,
second?
second on that.
Okay, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we can do that. And I'd just like to say, I think your proposal is a beautiful building. It's just the site is the concern, really. Because we live here, we've been up there, we know how they act. I live on Russell Street, so we know how they act, being surrounded, and you were looking for those kids that you don't know where they live? I can tell you, they live in those bedrooms that you think there are only one person in, there's two, believe me. Okay, so we've seen it all, we've seen everything here.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. We appreciate you coming with your applications. Okay, that's great.
I thought it was gonna be 10 o'clock too. I was starting to feel kind of dozy.
Okay, now let me find
You
out.
seconded that motion?
Yes, he did, to
Thank you.
continue, and then we don't have to renotice, and just, I'm sorry, I'm looking for my agenda to make sure we have anything else here. Unfinished business, new business, communications and other. I just, again, like to thank Jack Scarborough for coming forward to help, so we now have an alternate. And I would take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that.
Okay, second?
Second?
All right.